Hey, courageous school leaders. Welcome to Lead Beyond Limits, the space where school leaders like you gain unfiltered insights from educators, uncover the hidden barriers holding your staff back, and get practical strategies to lead with confidence. If you're ready to tackle the real challenges in your schools and create the clarity your team needs to thrive, you're in the right place. Let's dive in and get to work. Hello, hello, hello. Good afternoon, courageous leaders. Thank you for being here this evening. Either you're watching the replay or watching it live. Um, my name is Dr. Demia Thomas, and I have been in education for a couple of decades now. And this platform is here for me to share what I have learned and to continue the conversation. So tonight, I want to talk about something that is happening across schools during this time of the year. And so tonight's session is titled Why Most Intervention Blocks Collapse Under Pressure. And so we know as school leaders, it is mid February. The benchmark data is in. Most schools and districts have had at least 2 rounds of benchmark data. And have taken other assessments, DIBELS or wherever you are in your state or district, we know that state assessments are getting closer. And we also know that you have MTSS or intervention blocks that are going on in your schools. So just to be clear, and I don't want to get into the details. I sometimes have a tendency of saying too much information, so I'm going to hold off on that thought. So right now, because we're in mid-February with the benchmarks and the state assessments coming up in spring, you're starting to hear things like, we need to tighten small groups. First of all, what does that mean? Tighten small groups. I hear it all the time when I'm in schools. We need to, you'll hear school leaders and school teams and teachers, interventionists say, let's move some students. Can we adjust the time? Right? And now the intervention block is feeling heavier. Um, and I want to, what I'm going to get to later on is how this heavy feeling is not due to um, any program or lack of planning on your part. It has everything to do with a system, right? So just to go back to the heavy feeling that you may be experiencing right now, I remember a year when a district I was in asked all of the academic staff to report to schools to help schools with small group instruction. They were supposed to take what the intervention lessons, whatever was being used in the district at that time, and academic folks were assigned to schools for bubble kids, right? The ones who are right about there to help accelerate their learning and potential success for proficiency in state assessments on state assessments. And so academic folks actually went to schools and to help support schools with small group instruction during intervention time. And this happened maybe 4 weeks before state assessments. The pressure was real. People were in schools, adults were everywhere, students were being pulled constantly, schedules were shifting, to make accommodations for the extra adults for a small group. It was intense. It felt very intense for everybody, students, staff, everybody. Um, but what was realized was this, right? Like adults, more adults didn't fix the instability of the intensive block. The structure did, right? I've lived this season of intensives and intervention. I like to call it intensives. I've lived this season of intervention more than once in the elementary school that I led, in the middle school that I led, and also on the district level. and working with clients. Here's what I learned from working in all of those different um, viewpoints, vantage points. Here's what I learned. Most interventions are not working at full potential because there is a structure problem. It has nothing to do with, adults not wanting to do it, nothing negative in that sense. It's a structure problem. What I have seen in schools is, and here's what usually starts happening this time of year too, right? Students get grouped every few weeks. And so as I list these, I need you to listen to what I'm saying and see if these things are applicable to you in your school. So what starts happening now is, students get regrouped every few weeks. Teachers start teaching new intervention lessons without any repetition, right? Just having a new lessons come. For example, in one of my schools, we used iReady. I know other schools use different things, but we used iReady as one of the intervention pieces for math. It's an adaptive assessment and it tells you where students are, and it provides you with small group lessons to teach. And so teachers had to teach new lessons each time students were regrouped. Okay, so that's one of the things that's happening right now is that teachers are teaching these intervention lessons. Paraprofessionals or paraeducators are shifting in rooms depending on where the biggest need is, right? Special education teachers are maybe running a separate schedule that may not connect with the intervention block. Announcements are still going on during the intervention block, whatever time that is, 30 minutes, 60 minutes, right? Pullouts are happening during intervention time, right? Um, you, as the leader or your leadership team, you start checking rooms more frequently to make sure everything is running. Reflect. Any of those things that I named happening to you, I need you to consider. If the intervention block only runs when you are physically checking it, reminding people, or stopping interruptions, it isn't a system. It isn't. It's supervision, right? Again, if the intervention block only works when you're walking the halls, you're reminding teachers, you're stopping interruptions, you're rearranging paras all in real time, right? You're checking every room, you're resetting expectations weekly. You're mediating adult confusion because some adults may not understand what to do, and I mean all adults, not just teachers, your paraeducators, your interventionists, all the adults in your building, your behavior folks, right? If you're monitoring regrouping yourself, then the block is not structurally stable. It is leader dependent. And leader dependent systems collapse the moment you are in a meeting, you're out sick, you're dealing with a behavior crisis or a parent crisis. The minute you stop hovering, it collapses. And so a real system, and when I say system, a system that is sustaining your intervention efforts, a real system holds without you policing it daily. Because if you have to police it daily, then again, it's just supervision. Not that, and let me be clear, it's not that you shouldn't monitor. You absolutely should, because we all know the adage, right? Like what gets checked gets done. So I'm not saying that. I'm also not saying that your leadership should disappear. I'm absolutely not saying that. As the instructional leader, you're still present. You're still doing all those things, right? But the intervention block is a portion of your day. So you should not be hovering during that time, right? The structure itself should be carrying the weight of your intervention block. Okay? So, from what I have gathered working with school leaders, is that um, where leaders tend to get most frustrated with the intervention piece is they think we just need tighter, smaller groups, right? But the small groups don't fail first, right? The structure fails first. It's the lack of structure. These are the things, and I need you to think about it as I'm saying it, that will break first, right? Think about this. Students can't work independently for 60 minutes. Teachers are managing behavior instead of teaching small group. Adults don't have clearly defined roles, and I mean all of the adults, your leadership team, your paraeducators, your special education teachers, your gen ed teachers, your interventionists, your behavior folks, all staff for that intervention block. They don't have clearly defined roles on what they should be doing during that intervention time. The time isn't protected, right? Regrouping decisions are emotional instead of being scheduled, reactionary instead of being scheduled, right? Those are the things that will break first. So leaders adjust grouping, but grouping is not the root issue. It's not. So I need you to think about this, and I'm going to do a comparison so you can get a clearer picture of what I mean when I say, um, you know, what should and what happens in schools, like what most schools are doing compared to what stable systems do in schools during the intervention block, right? So most schools will regroup frequently, and it's not scheduled. It's just regrouping all haphazardly. No rhyme or reason, just regrouping. Most schools will regroup frequently. They will add more adults, very similar to how the district added more adults to the schools to assist with intervention in small groups. They adjust the materials, right? I'm in a Facebook group in one of the school leader Facebook groups. There's a post asking about um, what intervention programs like there was a leader who was asking, what intervention programs are working in other schools and wanted people in the group to kind of chime in. And the confusion here is the intervention is not about programs, right? That's what most schools do is in districts. They think about what programs will work, but it's not the programs. Any program will work if you have the right systems in place, right? So I go down this path here. So let me come back to this comparison, right? Like most schools, again, will regroup frequently, they'll add more adults, they'll adjust the materials, and they increase monitoring. Stable systems in schools stabilize independent work time. They define adult roles before implementing intervention. Before you launch intervention, the adult roles have to be clearly defined. That's what stable systems do. Stable systems protect the time without exception. Stable systems also regroup on a predictable cycle. There's a clear difference between what most schools do and what stable systems do. And I want to stop here and stress that, you know, and again, I feel like I'm going to go down this rabbit hole. I have a tendency to do that. Is, you know, districts are making decisions that are in the best interests of schools that they feel like would work. As the school leader, hence the reason why I call you and address you courageous leaders, you make the courageous, informed decisions that are best for your school. Everything doesn't fit every school, right? And when I say thing, I don't mean programs. I need us to move away from thinking about programs. It's not about programs. Or any program can work. It's based on the adults and the system that is created around the program. Okay? The things I'm talking about is the system. You are responsible as the school leader of the system in your school. So when we think about what most schools do and what stable systems do within schools, it's two distinctively different things. Just to hone in on one point here about the protected time. So think about this. Two 30-minute small group blocks, well, a whole block is two 30-minute small groups, right? Which means the other students, and I'm giving away too much right now, the other students are working independently while the teacher is working with the small groups for 30 minutes. One group, and then the teacher has a second small group for another 30 minutes, totaling 60, not 20, not 30, 60 minutes. If students cannot sustain 60 minutes without constant redirection, the small group teacher will be interrupted and your intervention block will collapse. Independent stamina is not a student issue. It's a structure issue. Okay? Think about this. And think about this question. You can either write it down to think about it and take it back to your leadership team so you guys can have a discussion, especially now because I know intervention time is really the focus right now. Um, think about this question. When was the last time your intervention block ran without you checking it? And I'm not talking about if you didn't check it, because, you know, that's another whole conversation that we're not going to talk about tonight. But when was the last time your intervention block ran without you checking it? Like to fidelity, everybody. I'm not talking about like, oh, 8 out of 10 classrooms did it to fidelity. I'm talking about 100% fidelity. Here's another question. Do adults in your building know their exact role during the intervention block? Or do they decide in the moment or like an hour before it's supposed to happen? Or even the night before? Do they? How do you know? Do adults in your building know exactly what they should be doing during the intervention block? That's real. That's real. If you don't know that as the school leader, that's another conversation. So, is regrouping, here's another question that I need you to think about, take back to your leadership team. When you are regrouping students, is it scheduled? Like you have a set time for people, your team, your grade level teams who to come together and actually work through the regrouping in a very strategic way, or is it reactive? Oh, student A did this on the test. We're going to move him from this group and put him in that group. That's reactive, especially if it's not collaborative with the whole, more than just the one teacher making that decision. So those are the three things, three questions I want you to take back to your leadership team. or even just reflect on it yourself and then have a conversation with your leadership team. Okay. So again, the common order that I see in schools is, typically we test students, schools will test students, they will group students once they've been tested, they assign adults to groups of students, and then they kind of hope it just holds. Like, yep, we did those three things. Go forth and be great, right? And what the cycle actually looks like when it's done that way is like, it could be every 6 weeks, it could be every 4 weeks, but there's new groups of students that emerge, there's new rosters that come up, and there's new lesson plans. But there's also new frustration, and there's also the same instability. When you keep the cycle of test students, group students, assign roles, and hope that it holds. Go forth. That's instability. If and it's repeated on a cycle, it's the same instability over and over again, right? And that's not because your staff isn't working. Everybody, I don't know one person in education, I'll say the majority of people in education really want kids to do well. The system and the structure is not built in its current state in its current form for that to happen, right? The structure underneath needs to be engineered. And that's what I'm going to leave you with tonight. How is your structure, your intervention block structured? How has it been engineered? How is it developed? Who had a say in how it develops? Who was at the table when it was developed? Okay. Next Thursday, February 26th, I'm walking through what we built when we shut our school down for 75 minutes a day. Scores increased. If your intervention block feels unstable right now, this session will help you see why. And I'm not talking about more small group strategies. I'm not talking about specific programs. I'm not, none of that stuff. I'm going to be talking about how we specifically engineered stability before layering in intervention. And if you are ready to see it structurally, then join me next Thursday, the 26th. I will put the link in the comments so that you can register. See you then. And as always, continue to lead beyond limits. Have a great evening.